the media and many political pundits have labels they place on Senator Bernie and myself, and sometimes we get the same titles. And one that they like to use is radical. Well, here's the truth. If believing that 500,000 Americans should not be forced into medical bankruptcy every single year is radical, then we're proud to be radical. If believing 26-year-old Alex from my hometown should not have died because he had to ration his insulin is radical, then I am proud to be radical. If believing that mental health, vision health, dental health should be guaranteed to all Americans is something that they consider radical, then we should all be proud to be radicals. And if believing that the opioid crisis is a public health crisis that could only be defeated by guaranteeing Medicare for all Americans, and that idea should be considered radical, then I am proud to be radical. See, I believe that public education is public good. Education should be extended to college. Every student should have a fair shot at an American dream. If that is radical, then we should all be proud to be radical. And if you believe that we should have Wall Street pay to cancel out student debt is radical, then we should all consider ourselves radicals. Here's another thing Bernie and I believe, is that no child should be subjected to shame and harassment because they can't afford lunch. And no student should have their meal thrown out because they have $15 debt. And if you believe that that is insane, you should consider yourself radical too. If being bothered by the fact that there are homeless people sleeping on the side of the streets in frigid weather in New Hampshire and in Minnesota is radical, then we should all be proud to be radical. If believing that 2 million Americans should not be evicted every single year because they can't afford rent is considered radical, then I am also very proud to be radical. I happen to believe that climate change is an existential threat to humanity. And believing that climate crisis and refugee crisis are linked. If it will take a global refugee pact to make sure climate refugees who lose their homes are welcomed with open arms and not shut out by a cringe fest. If that thought is radical, then we should all consider ourselves radicals. If you are like me and you have moral outrage that we continue to give the fossil fuel industry $20 billion in corporate welfare system, and you believe, like me, that that is one welfare system we should get rid of, then you should consider yourself radicals as well. And here's my favorite one. If you believe that it's time to end the waste we generate each year that's fueling our climate crisis is radical, then everybody should consider themselves radicals. I happen to believe that we cannot continue to ship jobs overseas and pay workers pennies on the dollar while laying off highly skilled union workers at home. And I believe with all my heart that my destiny, your destiny, the destiny of workers around the world are linked together. If that belief is radical, then I am so proud to be radical. The truth is, the only radicalism we are motivated by is radical love. That's why we're calling on everyone to be moved radically by love for their neighbors, for their country, for our democracy, and for humanity. Bernie Sanders has been motivated by radical love his whole life, and he has never wavered. This is the same agenda that motivated Dr. Martin Luther King. A year before he was murdered, Dr. King gave a speech in which he warned us of the three evils facing America: the evils of racism, the evils of poverty, and the evil of war. He launched the Poor People's Campaign, building a multi-racial working class coalition to end these evils in the United States. This is the movement we must emulate. And this is why we are here to organize. And that's the only way we can defeat the dark cloud of hate hanging over America. Bernie's work ever since he was a young student in the civil rights movement is an extension of the radical love Martin Luther King was fighting for. So I want everybody in this room to be radically moved. I want you all to be moved by the love you have for your neighbors and for your country. To be moved by the love that you have for the sanctity of humanity. To organize and to mobilize so that we can bring about change. Being radical means you believe in the idea that politics can be a vehicle of bringing joy into people's lives. It's because of my radical love for our country that I am here today. And I am radically and I am so radically excited to introduce our next president, Bernie Sanders.
Just stay here for a second. Let me thank all of you for being out here this afternoon. Let me especially thank Ilhan Omar for being here. Because I want you to know that you're looking at one of the extraordinary people in American politics in Ilhan. This is we talk about the American dream. We talk about what America is supposed to be. You are looking at a woman who fled civil war in Somalia, who spent 4 years in a refugee camp in Kenya, and became the first Muslim congressman in the history of our country. And this is a woman, she doesn't talk about it, but she has stood up to some of the most ugly racism ever thrown at a member of the United States Congress, and she has stood up with pride and dignity. And we are so proud of Ilhan Omar.